My name is Danielle Atwood. I am 32 years old. Last Sunday, my mother-in-law slid a manila envelope across the dinner table, looked at my husband, and said, "I think you need to see this." She had secretly DNA tested our 3-year-old daughter. She expected the results to destroy my marriage. What she did not expect was that those same results would destroy her. But here is what none of them knew. Not my husband, not his sister, not even his father. I had found out about the test 2 weeks before that dinner, and what I did with those 2 weeks changed everything. Before I take you back to the beginning, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from right now, and what time is it? I love reading those. Now let me take you back 7 years, to the day I first met Patricia Atwood. I was 25. Mark and I had been dating for 4 months. He brought me to his parents' house on a Saturday in October, and his mother opened the door like she was receiving a deposition. She did not hug me. She shook my hand, firm grip, eyes already scanning. The first 30 minutes were fine. Pot roast, small talk. Weren't telling a story about rewiring their garage. Normal enough. But then, Patricia steered the conversation the way she steered everything. Quietly. With purpose. "So, Danielle, where did you grow up?" I told her. "Bridgeport. Small apartment. My mom was a pediatric nurse. And your father?" I set my fork down. "He left when I was 6. Patricia nodded slowly. She touched her pearl earring, this small, practiced gesture I would see 1,000 times over the next 7 years. She twisted it once between her thumb and forefinger, then smiled. That must have been difficult. She said it the way people say, "interesting," when they mean, "noted." Later, in the car, Mark said, "She liked you." I said, "Did she?" He laughed. I did not. What I noticed that night, and what I filed away, without understanding it yet, was how much Patricia needed to know where things came from. Not just me. Everything. She asked Mark about the wine. Where was it made? Who recommended it? She inspected the label before she poured. She was a woman who tracked origins. I did not know then that this quality would one day be turned against my daughter, but I remember thinking, she is someone who keeps score. Mark and I got married the following June. Small ceremony. 40 guests. Outdoor venue near the Connecticut coast. My mother flew in from Arizona. Patricia wore cream, which my maid of honor said was a power move. I did not care. I was marrying a good man. The first year was quiet in the way new marriages often are. We rented a house in Milford, 40 minutes from Patricia and Warren, close enough for holidays, far enough for breathing room. Except, Patricia did not believe in breathing room. She showed up unannounced. Tuesdays, mostly, sometimes Thursdays, she would walk in through the side door. We had given her a key for emergencies and rearranged whatever was in reach. The spice rack, the coat closet. Once, she reorganized my linen cabinet and left a note. Towels by color, easier to find. I thanked her. Mark said that was just how she was. Courtney, Mark's younger sister, visited on weekends. She was 24 then, still living with Patricia, still orbiting her mother, like a satellite with no trajectory of its own. Every visit ended the same way. Courtney would leave, and by that evening, Patricia would call Mark with commentary about our house, our meals, our plans. I did not say anything. I was new to the family. I was still learning the rules. One night at Thanksgiving, Patricia raised her glass. "To Mark," she said. She looked around the table. Warren, Courtney, Aunt Margot, Uncle Dennis. Then, her eyes landed on me for exactly 1 second. Mark could have had anyone. Anyone. The table laughed. I smiled. Somewhere in my chest, a small, precise instrument made its first measurement. Lily was born on a Wednesday in March, 2 years into our marriage. 7 pounds, 4 ounces. She came out screaming, which the nurse said was a good sign. Her hair was dark, almost black. Patricia held her in the hospital room and said, "She looks just like Mark did." There was warmth in it, real warmth. For a moment, I thought, maybe this is the thing that brings us together. That moment lasted about 6 months. At 6 months, Lily's hair began to change. Not all at once, strand by strand. Like autumn arriving, dark brown lightened to auburn. Auburn brightened to copper. And by her first birthday, my daughter had a head full of strawberry red curls that caught the light like small fires. I thought it was beautiful. My mother had the same hair. Her grandmother before her. The genetics were not a mystery to me. But Patricia did not see genetics. She saw a problem. "Interesting," she said at Lily's first birthday party, holding a curl between her fingers the way someone holds a piece of evidence. Red hair. She looked at Mark, looked at me, looked back at Mark. "Where does that come from?" I explained. "Recessive gene, my maternal line. It skips generations sometimes." Patricia smiled the pearl earring smile. Interesting. Because red hair does not run in the Atwood family." She said it lightly, the way you mention a crack in a foundation. Not alarming, just factual. Just something that should probably be looked at. Nobody at the party responded, but I heard it. And I knew, with the certainty of someone who reads body language for a living, that she had been thinking about this for a while. Over the next year, things shifted. It was not dramatic. Nothing Patricia did was ever dramatic at first. She was methodical. She planted seeds the way someone salts a road before a storm. Thin, deliberate layers that you do not feel until you lose your footing. The comments about Lily's hair became routine. Not every visit, but often enough. "She is so unique looking. No one on our side has that coloring. Does your family have any Irish? Maybe that explains it." I started keeping count. 14 comments in 6 months. I wrote the dates in a small notebook I kept in my bedside drawer. Professional habit. In my work as an occupational therapist, I documented everything. Behavioral patterns, motor milestones, sensory triggers. Documentation was how I made sense of the world. Courtney amplified the campaign from her own channel. She posted a photo of Lily on Instagram. Red curls, green romper, standing in Patricia's garden, with the caption, "She is so unique looking. Wonder where she gets it." Smiley face emoji. 1,400 likes. I showed Mark. He shrugged. Court is just being court. The extended family began to look at me differently. Warren's brother Dennis avoided eye contact at a barbecue. Cousin Ellie, who had always been warm, stopped texting. And Aunt Margot, Patricia's older sister, started watching me the way you watch someone you are waiting to catch. None of this was said out loud. That was the point. Patricia was not building a case with words. She was building one with silence. The kind of silence that fills a room with suspicion, the way smoke fills a house before anyone sees the fire. I felt it. I just could not prove it yet. The sippy cup incident happened on a Tuesday in April. Mark had a site meeting 2 hours north. I had a late shift at the hospital. A 7-year-old with a spinal cord injury needed extra session time, and I could not say no. Patricia offered to watch Lily. I dropped Lily off at 10 in the morning, packed her bag, snacks, diapers, her favorite stuffed elephant, and the green sippy cup she had been using since she was 18 months old. When I picked Lily up at 6, the cup was gone. "Oh, that old thing?" Patricia said. I threw it out. It looked worn. It was not worn. I had bought it 3 weeks earlier. I did not push it. I thanked her, loaded Lily into the car seat, drove home. But something else caught my eye that afternoon. When I walked through Patricia's kitchen to grab Lily's jacket from the counter, I saw a small Ziploc bag on the table, the kind you use for snack storage or evidence. Patricia moved fast. She picked it up and tucked it into a drawer before I could read the label. Just organizing, she said, and on her desk in the hallway, partially visible behind a stack of mail, I saw a manila envelope, thick, sealed, with a return address I could not quite make out. I did not connect any of it that night. The sippy cup, the Ziploc bag, the envelope. They were puzzle pieces without a picture. I went home, bathed Lily, read her a story, and fell asleep. But my brain, the part of me trained to notice patterns in children who could not tell me what was wrong, that part of me was already working. At work, I was someone else. Not a different person. A fuller version of the same one. In Patricia's world, I was quiet, careful, always adjusting. At the hospital, I was calm because I chose to be. There is a difference. My patients that spring included a 4-year-old boy named Aiden who had been born with cerebral palsy. His left hand curled inward, his right hand overcompensated. Getting him to hold a crayon was a project measured in millimeters and months. I sat with him 3 times a week, guiding his fingers, adjusting the grip, waiting. Some sessions he cried, some sessions he laughed. Most sessions he just stared at the crayon like it was a mountain he was not sure he could climb. One Thursday, he drew a circle, lopsided, shaky, barely closed, but a circle. His mother cried in the hallway. I cried in the supply closet after my shift. My supervisor, Dr. Rivers, pulled me aside the following week. Danielle, you are the calmest person in a crisis I have ever met. I made $72,000 a year. Not rich, not struggling. Enough to cover my student loans, contribute to Lily's education fund, and pay for the occasional dinner Mark and I still managed to have alone. I mention this because later, when Patricia tried to frame me as someone who married Mark for money or security, it mattered that I had built my own life before he was in it. I paid my way through grad school. I earned my license. I chose this work because holding a child's hand while they learned to do something they were told they could not do is the closest thing I know to prayer. Patricia never asked about my work, not once in 7 years. Easter was the first time Patricia said it in front of everyone. We were at her house, full table. Warren, Courtney, Margot, Dennis, Ellie. Lily had just run into the dining room in her yellow dress, red curls bouncing, and Ellie said, "Oh my God, she is adorable." Patricia set her wine glass down. "She really does not look like any Atwood I have ever seen." She paused. Let the silence do its work. Not one. Courtney, right on cue. Mom is right. I looked at old family photos. No redheads. I felt the table turn. Not dramatically. No one gasped. But the air changed the way air changes before weather. Warren cleared his throat. Margot studied her asparagus. I looked at Mark. He was looking at his plate. He said nothing. The dinner continued. Lily ate her mashed potatoes. Patricia served dessert. Courtney complimented the pie. The wound was delivered and papered over in the same breath. In the car on the way home, I said, "If your mother says that one more time in front of your family, I will respond." Mark's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "She will not. I will talk to her." "When?" "Soon. That is what you said after Thanksgiving." He did not answer. We drove the rest of the way in silence. Lily slept in the back, her red curls pressed against the car seat fabric. He never talked to her. I knew he would not. Mark avoided conflict the way some people avoid highways, not because they were afraid, but because they had learned early that the fastest route was also the one with the most collisions. But I was done waiting for him to merge. 3 weeks after Easter, my phone rang at work. I was between patients, sitting in the therapy room, cleaning rubber grips from a hand exercise kit. The number was local. I almost let it go to voicemail. "Mrs. Atwood, this is Kelly, from Geneva Labs. I am calling to confirm that we have received a sample for analysis under your daughter's name, Lily Atwood, age 3. I set the grip down. I did not submit a sample. The submission was made under the name Patricia Atwood. She listed herself as the child's grandmother. However, our policy requires parental consent for testing on minors. I asked her to repeat that. She did. We have placed the test on hold pending your authorization. Would you like to proceed or cancel? Cancel. My hands were shaking when I hung up, but my voice had not cracked. It never does when it matters. Something I learned from my mother, who delivered bad news to parents about their children's health for 28 years and never once raised her voice. I sat in the therapy room for 4 minutes. I stared at the wall chart of hand muscles, flexor digitorum, abductor pollicis, opponents. I let the Latin ground me. Then I picked up my phone and called a family attorney. Let me pause here, because what I did in the 14 days between that phone call and that Sunday dinner is the reason I am standing where I am today. If this story is hitting close to home, hit that subscribe button. I promise you, it is worth staying. I called a lawyer that same afternoon. Her name was Rachel, and she told me something that changed the way I understood everything. Rachel Nguyen practiced family law out of a small office in New Haven. She had 14 years of experience and a reputation for being direct. I told her everything. The comments, the sippy cup, the phone call from Geneva Labs. She listened without interrupting, which, in my line of work, is the hallmark of someone who is actually paying attention. When I finished, she leaned back. Under Connecticut law, a grandparent cannot authorize genetic testing on a minor child without the express consent of a parent or legal guardian. Full stop. So what she did is illegal? It is a violation of your daughter's privacy rights and potentially actionable in civil court. It may also violate the testing company's terms of service, which could expose them as well. She paused. Did she forge your consent on the submission form? I do not know. We will find out. Rachel made a note. In the meantime, do not confront her. Do not tell your husband yet. I looked at her. Why not? Because if you tell Mark, he will call his mother. She will cry, apologize, and ask him to keep it in the family. The pattern will repeat. If you want this to stop, really stop, you need to let her play her hand. I paid the consultation fee. $350. It was the best money I have ever spent. Walking out of Rachel's office, I called Geneva Labs back. I asked them to confirm the sample had been cancelled and to flag any future submissions involving Lily Atwood without my written authorization. Then I drove to pick up Lily from daycare. She ran to me at the door, arms up, red curls everywhere. I held her and thought, nobody is taking anything from us. That night, after Lily went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. I searched DNA testing consent laws, Connecticut minor child. The results confirmed what Rachel had told me. Parental consent was required. A grandparent had no legal standing to authorize genetic testing on a grandchild. I searched. At-home DNA test kits. No parental consent. This was where it got more complicated. Clinical labs like Geneva had strict consent protocols. That was why they called me. But consumer platforms, the ones that advertise ancestry and family connections, had consent checkboxes that were easier to bypass. Click. I am the parent or legal guardian. Submit. Done. Patricia had used Geneva for what I assumed was a paternity-style test, but had she also used a consumer platform? I opened Patricia's Facebook page. She rarely posted, but Courtney tagged her in things. Family dinners, Lily's photos. I scrolled back. In February, Courtney had shared an article titled, What Your DNA Says About Your Family. The surprising connections that at-home tests reveal. Patricia had commented, very interesting. I took a screenshot, saved it to a folder on my desktop labeled Documentation. Professional habit? Then I opened my bedside notebook, the one where I had been logging Patricia's comments about Lily's hair. 14 entries in 6 months. I added a 15th. April 14th. Geneva Labs confirmed sample submitted under Patricia Atwood's name without parental consent. I closed the notebook. I looked at the bedroom door. Mark was already asleep. I wanted to wake him. I wanted to show him everything. But Rachel's words kept circling. Let her play her hand. So I turned off the lamp. And I waited. The hardest part was not the waiting. It was carrying the knowledge alone. For the next 3 days, I moved through my life as if nothing had changed. I went to work, I treated patients, I came home and cooked dinner, and gave Lily her bath, and read her the same book about the caterpillar she had requested every night for 2 months. Mark noticed nothing, and I do not blame him for that. He was managing 3 construction sites that month. He came home tired. He kissed Lily on the forehead. He kissed me on the mouth. He fell asleep by 9:30. One night, Lily crawled between us. She does that. 2 in the morning, bare feet patting down the hall, climbing in like a small negotiator at a summit. She curled into Mark's side. Her red curls fanned across the pillow. I watched them in the nightlight. My husband and my daughter. His jaw, her curls, his steady breathing, her small fist gripping his shirt. I thought about my mother. She had raised 3 children on a nurse's salary after my father walked out. No family money, no backup plan. She did it by documenting everything. Insurance claims, school forms, budgets scratched on the backs of envelopes. She taught me that information is not power. Knowing when to use it is. At work, I helped a 6-year-old girl practice gripping a spoon. She dropped it 11 times. On the 12th, she held it long enough to bring it to her mouth. She looked at me and smiled. Good, I said. Again. Some things cannot be rushed. You prepare. You position. You wait for the moment when the grip holds. I was not ready yet, but I was getting close. On day 5, I got lucky. I drove to Patricia's house to pick up a pair of Lily's shoes she had left there the previous weekend. Patricia was out. Hair appointment, Courtney said when she opened the door. Courtney was in the living room, phone propped against a stack of books, FaceTiming someone. I walked past her toward the mudroom where Lily's shoes were. The house was quiet, except for Courtney's voice, which carried the way it always did, louder than necessary, as if the world needed to hear her participation in it. Mom has the results. She is doing it at Sunday dinner, in front of everyone. I stopped. My hand was on Lily's left shoe. She has been planning it for weeks. She says once Mark sees the proof, he will not be able to ignore it. The voice on the other end said something I could not hear. Courtney laughed. I know, right? It is going to be insane. I picked up the shoes, walked back through the living room. Courtney saw me, killed the call fast. Oh hey, just chatting with a friend. I smiled. No worries, just grabbing Lily's shoes. Cool, tell Mark I said hi. Will do. I walked to my car, sat behind the wheel, set the shoes on the passenger seat, placed both hands on the steering wheel, and pressed until my knuckles turned white. Now I knew 3 things. When, Sunday, where, the dinner table, who would be watching, everyone. Patricia had built a stage. She had cast the audience. She had rehearsed the lines. And she believed, fully, absolutely believed, that the results would say what she wanted them to say. I started the car. I was not going to stop her. I was going to let her light the match. The fire would find its own way back. On day 7, I found James. Not intentionally. Not at first. I was trying to understand how Patricia's DNA submission worked on the consumer platform, the one she had used alongside the clinical lab. I created my own account on the same service, submitted my own sample, and spent an evening reading about how familial matching algorithms function. Here is what I learned. When you submit DNA to one of these platforms, the system does not just test paternity. It scans the entire database for genetic relatives. Siblings, cousins, second cousins. Anyone who shares enough markers with your sample gets flagged as a potential relative. Patricia had submitted Lily's DNA. That meant Lily's profile was now cross-referenced with every other profile in the system. I logged into the account Patricia had created. She had used an email I found through a password reset trick Courtney had once mentioned in passing. The password was Lily's birthday. Of course it was. And there, under potential relatives on Lily's profile, was a name I had never seen. James M. Age, 36, Portland, Oregon. Relationship estimate, half-uncle or equivalent. I stared at the screen. Half-uncle meant one thing. James shared a biological parent with either Mark or with me. Since I was not biologically connected to the platform's test, only Lily was. The match had to be on Mark's side, which meant either Warren had a secret son, or Patricia did. I took a screenshot, saved it to the documentation folder, emailed it to Rachel. The next morning, Rachel called. If this match is accurate, it means someone in the Atwood bloodline has a biological connection to this man that they have not disclosed. Or that Patricia has a biological connection, I said. She submitted the test. Rachel was quiet for a moment. Then we need to find out who James M. is. James Michael Callahan, born June 1990, Portland, Oregon. Adopted at birth through a private agency in Hartford, Connecticut. It took me 2 evenings to find this. The DNA platform had limited public information, but James had opted into the open to contact feature. His profile said, adopted. Looking for biological family, open to conversation. I did not contact him. That was not my right, but I did the math. Born, 1990. Patricia was 25. She and Warren married in 1992 when she was 27. Mark was born in 1992 as well. Patricia had a child 2 years before she married Warren. She gave that child up for adoption. And she never told anyone, except, possibly, the one person who had been sitting at every family dinner, watching me with careful eyes, Aunt Margot. Because when I looked at James's DNA match report more carefully, I noticed something. The platform listed shared matches, other profiles that both James and Lily connected to. One of them was tagged Margaret R., possible aunt or half-aunt. Margot's middle name was Ruth. Margaret Ruth. Margot knew. She had known for 36 years. I sat at my kitchen table and thought about Patricia. Not with anger. Not yet. I thought about a 25-year-old woman. Unmarried. Probably scared. Making a decision that would follow her for the rest of her life. I understood that kind of fear. I had grown up watching my mother make impossible choices. But understanding a choice and forgiving the lie that follows it are not the same thing. Patricia had not just given up a child. She had buried the truth so deep that she convinced herself the only threat to her family's bloodline was me. She was afraid of being found out. And she turned that fear into a weapon aimed at my daughter. Thursday. Patricia called. Big family dinner this Sunday. I want everyone there. I told Warren to invite Dennis. Her voice was bright. Too bright. The kind of brightness that comes from rehearsal. We will be there, I said. Friday. I printed the screenshots. I organized my documentation folder. Dates, events, evidence, lab confirmation, platform login records, the familial match report for James M. I backed everything up to my cloud drive and emailed copies to Rachel. Rachel. If she does it, if she presents the test publicly, that strengthens your position in any civil action. You have witnesses. I know. Are you sure you want to go through with this? You could confront her privately. End it before Sunday. I am sure. Saturday night. I gave Lily her bath. She sat in the tub, splashing. Her red curls slicked wet and dark against her neck. I shampooed her hair gently, working the lather through the tangles. Mommy, why does Grandma Pat always touch my hair? I paused. My 3-year-old, already noticing. Because your hair is beautiful, baby. Is it magic hair? I smiled. The most magic. I dried her. dressed her in pajamas, read her the caterpillar book. She fell asleep holding my thumb. Mark came upstairs. Mom seems really excited about Sunday. Wonder what is up. I looked at him. My husband. Kind face. Tired eyes. Good man who had spent his entire life believing his mother was who she said she was. I guess we will find out, I said. I lay in bed that night and did not sleep. I stared at the ceiling and ran through every scenario. In every version, the truth came out. The only variable was how much it would cost. Sunday morning. I dressed carefully. Ivory sweater. Soft, not sharp. Dark jeans. The small gold necklace Mark gave me on our first anniversary. No war paint. No armor. Just me. Lily wore a blue dress with white flowers. She spun twice in the hallway mirror before I caught her. Mark loaded the car. 40 minutes north. Classic rock on the radio. Lily fell asleep before we hit the highway. I watched Mark's hands on the steering wheel. Strong hands. Capable hands. He built things for a living. Houses. Structures. Things designed to hold weight. And I thought, today, those hands would either hold mine or let go. We pulled into Patricia's driveway at 4:15. 3 cars already there. Warren's truck, Courtney's sedan, a silver Buick I recognized as Margot's. Full house. Patricia met us at the door. She hugged Mark. Long, firm. The kind of hug mothers give when they are about to do something they believe is righteous. She nodded at me. Brief. Efficient. Put Lily down upstairs, she said. She can nap in the guest room. I carried Lily up, laid her on the bed, pulled a blanket over her legs. Her red curls fanned across the white pillow. Back downstairs, the family was assembled. Warren in his usual chair by the window. Dennis beside him. Courtney on the couch, phone in hand, leg bouncing. Ellie, Courtney's cousin, setting out napkins. Margot standing by the china cabinet, arms crossed, mouth tight. And on the hallway table, right where I had seen it 2 weeks ago, the manila envelope. Thick, sealed, waiting. Patricia caught me looking at it. She smiled. The pearl earrings smile. Dinner first, she said. The pot roast was good. I will give Patricia that. She had always been an excellent cook. One of the few things about her that was not a performance. Warren told a story about a fishing trip. Dennis laughed. Ellie complimented the gravy. Normal sounds, normal dinner. But I was watching the currents beneath the surface. Courtney checked her phone every 30 seconds. Not texting, just checking the time. She was on a clock. Margot held her fork the way some people hold the railing on a bridge. Tight grip. Eyes straight ahead. She ate almost nothing. Patricia sat at the head of the table. She smiled at everyone. She asked about Dennis's new truck. She refilled Warren's water. She was performing calm the way an actress performs grief. Technically perfect. Emotionally hollow. 20 minutes in, the small talk had run its course. Warren was mid-sentence about a carburetor when Patricia stood up. She smoothed her blouse, tucked a strand of dyed brown hair behind her ear, cleared her throat. Before dessert, she said, there is something I want to share with the family. The table went quiet. Warren stopped talking. Dennis set his fork down. Ellie looked at Courtney. Courtney looked at her plate. Margot closed her eyes. Just for a second. Just long enough for me to notice. Patricia walked to the hallway, returned with the manila envelope. She held it the way a prosecutor holds an exhibit. At chest level, label facing out. What happened in the next 3 minutes changed everything. Not just for me, for every person at that table. If you have not subscribed yet, now is the time. Stay with me. Patricia set the envelope on the table, slid it toward Mark. Open it. Mark looked at the envelope, then at his mother. What is this? Patricia placed her hands flat on the table. She had rehearsed this. I could tell because her breathing was measured. The same cadence she probably used when delivering disciplinary news at the elementary school, where she had spent 30 years as an administrator. This is a DNA test, she said. For Lily. The room contracted. I could feel it. The walls pulling inward. the air thinning. Warren. Patricia, what the hell did you do? Patricia did not look at him. She looked at me. No offense, dear, but this family deserves the truth. Mom. Mark's voice was low. What truth? I had Lily tested. Privately. Because I love this family. Because that child, she pointed toward the ceiling, toward the room where our daughter slept, does not look like an Atwood. Courtney leaned forward. Margot stared at her plate. Patricia's voice rose half a register. She was reaching the part she had practiced most. I have said it before, I will say it again. Red hair does not run in the Atwood family. And I think Mark has a right to know whether that child is really his. The sentence landed on the table like a brick through glass. Dennis looked at his hands. Ellie's mouth opened, then closed. Warren gripped the armrest of his chair. Mark stared at the envelope. His hands were steady, but his jaw was working. The way it does when he is deciding between silence and something irreversible. Open it, Patricia said again. She was smiling. She believed, truly, deeply believed, that the contents of that envelope would prove her right. She was wrong. Mark picked up the envelope, broke the seal, pulled out a stack of pages, 5 or 6 sheets, printed on lab letterhead. He read the first page in silence. 15 seconds passed, maybe 20. Long enough for Patricia to shift her weight from one foot to the other. Long enough for Courtney to stop breathing. Mark looked up. He looked at Patricia. She is mine. Patricia blinked. What? Probability of paternity? 99.9998%. He held up the page. Lily is my daughter. The smile on Patricia's face did not fall. It fractured, like ice on a windshield. Still in place, but no longer holding. That cannot be right. Let me see. She reached for the papers. Mark pulled them back. No, you have done enough. Courtney, maybe the lab made an error. Mark turned to her. Shut up, Court. Courtney recoiled like she had been slapped. In 34 years, Mark had never spoken to her like that. The room understood. Something had shifted in him. A door that had been propped open his entire life had just closed. Patricia's hand went to her pearl earring. Twisting. The gesture I had seen at our first dinner together. At Thanksgiving. At Easter. At every moment when Patricia's certainty met resistance, and she needed something to hold on to. There must be a mistake, she said. Her voice was smaller now. The hair, the coloring. It does not make sense. Mark set the papers down. He looked at me for the first time since Patricia had stood up. I had been sitting at the far end of the table. Still. Quiet. Hands folded in my lap. Watching. And now it was my turn to speak. The results are correct, Patricia. My voice was level. The same voice I use when a parent asks me if their child will ever walk normally. Calm, clear, and carrying more weight than volume. I know, because I called the lab 2 weeks ago when they contacted me to verify parental consent. Consent that you never obtained. The room shifted. Not a sound. A vibration. The kind you feel in the floor before a train arrives. Warren leaned forward. You tested our granddaughter without their permission? Patricia's chin lifted. I was protecting this family. Under Connecticut state law, I said, a grandparent cannot authorize genetic testing of a minor without written parental consent. Your attorney can explain the specifics if you would like. Mine already has. I said this the way I document a patient's progress notes. Factual, chronological, without adjectives. Patricia's face cycled through 3 colors in as many seconds. Pink, to red, to white. Her hand dropped from her earring. But the lab should not have. The lab followed protocol. You did not. Silence. Courtney pressed her lips together. Dennis looked at Warren. Warren looked at Patricia with an expression I had never seen him wear. Not anger, not disappointment. Something worse. The look of someone realizing they do not know the person sitting across from them. I let the silence hold. 1 second, 2, 3, then I said, but that is not the most interesting thing in those results. Every head turned. Mark looked at me. What do you mean? Keep reading, I said. Page 4. He flipped past the paternity confirmation, past the methodology page, past the consent disclosure, and he reached the familial match report. Mark read aloud, slowly. The way you read something you do not yet understand. Potential familial match. James M., age 36, Portland, Oregon. Relationship estimate. Half uncle to Lily Atwood. He stopped, looked at the page again, looked at me, looked at Patricia. Half uncle. He said it like he was translating from another language. That would mean he is either my half-brother or Danielle's half-brother. He is not mine, I said. Mark turned to Patricia. Mom, who is James? Patricia's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Her hands gripped the edge of the table. Her pearl earring, the one she had been touching all night, hung motionless. Even the nervous gesture had abandoned her. I do not know what that. Aunt Margot's fork hit the plate. She stood up. Trish, do not, 2 words, and the room understood everything. Dennis, Margot, sit down. Warren stood slowly. His chair scraped across the hardwood, a sound that cut through the silence like a blade dragged across a stone. Trish, answer the question. Patricia's eyes filled. She looked at Margot. Margot shook her head. A small, desperate no. It was before you, Patricia said. Her voice cracked. Not the practice crack of a woman performing vulnerability. A real crack. The kind that comes from a wall bearing weight for 36 years, finally giving way. Before your father. I was 25. I was not ready. You had a child. Mark's voice was flat. I was young. I was so scared. You had a child, and you never told me. He stood now too. You never told Dad. Warren's hand found the back of his chair. He held it the way you hold something when the ground is no longer steady. 36 years. Warren's voice was quiet. Electrician's hands flat on the table. We have been married 34. Patricia. Warren. Please. It was before us. I was so ashamed. You told Margot. He looked at Margot, who was still standing, one hand on the china cabinet. But not me. Margot. Warren. She was scared. Were you scared for 36 years, Trish? The question landed and stayed. Nobody moved. Patricia cried. Real tears this time. Not the performative kind she deployed when Mark forgot to call on Sundays, or when Courtney cancelled plans. These were the tears of a woman watching a foundation she had built with silence crumble under the weight of her own scheme. For one moment, one small, strange moment, I saw her, not the Patricia who had spent 7 years questioning my daughter's DNA, but the 25-year-old girl who sat in a hospital in Hartford and signed papers and walked away from a baby she was not allowed to keep. I understood that girl. My heart ached for her. Then Patricia wiped her eyes, straightened her back, and said, This is Danielle's fault. She brought this up to humiliate me. The moment of sympathy evaporated, like steam off a window. Gone. Mark stepped forward. Mom, Danielle did not bring up anything. You ordered the DNA test. You planned this dinner. You slid that envelope across the table. He picked up the pages, held them toward her. I think you need to see this. He said it slowly. The same words she had used 20 minutes earlier. Is that not what you said? Well, we saw it. Patricia sat down, not in her chair. She missed it slightly and caught the edge. Margot reached for her. Patricia pushed her hand away. Courtney was crying. Mascara tracked down both cheeks. She looked less like a 29-year-old influencer and more like a child who had just discovered the rules of her world were not what she thought. I did not know about James, she said. Mom, you told me Lily was not Mark's. You said you had proof. Patricia, she is not. The red hair. Mark cut in. Mom, I am the one with the recessive gene. He pulled out his phone, swiped through his photos, found what he was looking for, and held it up for the table to see. A photograph, old, taken in the early 1980s, judging by the clothes. A young woman standing in a garden, squinting into the sun. She had red hair. I found this in the attic last year, Mark said. In a box of old photos you told me were Aunt Margot's. It is you, Mom. Age 19 or 20. Dennis leaned in. Patricia, is that you? Your hair was red? Patricia's hand, the one that always found her pearl earring, hung at her side. She reached up slowly, unclipped the earring, set it on the table. The small gold post clicked against the wood. I started dyeing it at 19, she said. I always hated it. The red hair that did not run in the Atwood family had run through Patricia's veins since birth. She had buried it under 40 years of salon appointments and careful maintenance. And then, when her granddaughter was born with the same trait, she did not see inheritance. She saw exposure. Courtney looked at me. I am so sorry, Danielle. I did not. I know you did not, Courtney. There was nothing else to say at that table. Warren picked up his jacket from the back of his chair. He put it on slowly, the way he did everything. Deliberate, measured. I am going for a drive, he said. He did not look at Patricia. Mark, we are leaving too. He turned to me. Get Lily. I went upstairs. Lily was still sleeping. Red curls spread across the white pillow like small copper rivers. I lifted her gently. She stirred, pressed her face into my neck, and settled. I carried her downstairs. The dining room was emptying. Dennis had his coat. Ellie was at the front door, keys in hand. Margot stood by the china cabinet, frozen, arms wrapped around herself. At the front door, Patricia stepped in front of Mark. Her eyes were swollen. Her hair, that carefully dyed brown, looked suddenly wrong, like a costume. Mark, please, do not leave like this. We can talk. Mark stopped, looked at her. You did not want to talk, Mom. You wanted to perform. Margot tried. Everyone just needs to calm down. Warren, already at his truck, called back without turning. Margot, if you say one more word, I am calling my lawyer in the morning. The sentence landed on the porch like a gavel. Margot went silent. Dennis passed her without a word. Ellie followed, eyes on the ground. I carried Lily to the car. Mark opened the door. I buckled her into the car seat. She murmured something about her stuffed elephant. I handed it to her. She grabbed it with both hands and went back to sleep. The house behind us, Patricia's house, the house she had ruled for 30 years, emptied one person at a time. The dinner she planned to expose me had emptied her own home. We drove in silence for 10 minutes. Lily slept in the back. The highway was empty. Sunday evening, most people were already home. Street lights passed overhead in slow rhythm, casting amber bands across the dashboard. Mark spoke first. How long did you know? About the test. 2 weeks. About James. 8 days. Why did you not tell me? I had practiced this answer. Not in words, in logic. I knew the shape of it before I knew the sentences, because I needed you to see it for yourself. If I had told you privately, you would have called her. She would have cried and apologized and asked you to keep it in the family, and nothing would have changed. He gripped the steering wheel, released, gripped again. You are saying I would have let her off the hook. I am saying the pattern was 34 years old. I could not break it with a conversation. You needed to see her perform. He was quiet for a mile. Then, she dyed her hair. For 40 years. Red hair was hers all along. I know. Another mile. I have a brother, half-brother, in Portland, James. He said the name like he was tasting it, testing its weight. I watched him, his profile against the passing lights, the jaw that Lily had inherited, the shoulders that carried more than construction materials. He was processing, not shutting down, not deflecting, processing. He reached across the center console, found my hand, held it. He did not let go until we pulled into our driveway. He turned off the engine, sat for a moment, looked at me. Thank you, he said, for not protecting me from this. I squeezed his hand. That is not what partners do. Monday. Mark called Patricia. I need time. Do not contact Danielle or Lily. Patricia. For how long? Mark. Until I am ready. He hung up, poured coffee, went to work. That was Mark. Process by doing. Tuesday. Warren called. He was staying at Dennis's house. Told your mother, I need space to think, he said. His voice was even. No tremor, no crack. Electrician's steadiness. 34 years of marriage. That is a lot of wire to trace back. Wednesday. Courtney texted me. 3 words. I am sorry. Then, a longer message. I should have questioned Mom instead of believing her. I was wrong. And I know an apology does not fix it, but I needed to say it. I replied, thank you for saying that. Thursday. Rachel sent Patricia a formal letter. Cease and desist regarding any unauthorized genetic testing of Lily Atwood. Notice of potential civil action under Connecticut privacy statutes. Patricia called Mark. Panicked. Mark told her to read the letter carefully and call a lawyer. Friday evening. Mark sat at the kitchen table with his laptop open. He had been quiet all week. Not withdrawn, just focused, like he was building something in his head. I found him, he said. James. He is a high school history teacher. He coaches JV basketball. He has a daughter, 4 years old. He turned the screen toward me. A photo on a school website. James Callahan. Dark hair. Same jaw as Mark. Same slight crook in the nose. He posted on the DNA platform 3 years ago, looking for his birth mother. On the desk behind us, the manila envelope sat, where I had placed it when we got home Sunday night, unsealed. The document that was meant to destroy us had become the document that rebuilt the truth. Mark emailed James on Saturday morning. He wrote and deleted it 4 times. I watched from the kitchen doorway with my coffee, saying nothing. He needed to find the words himself. The final version was short. My name is Mark Atwood. I believe I am your half-brother. My mother was born in Hartford, Connecticut, in 1965. If you are open to talking, I would like that. James responded in 2 hours. I have been looking for her for 7 years. I never expected to hear from a brother. They scheduled a video call for that evening. Mark set up his laptop at the kitchen table. I took Lily to the living room to watch her caterpillar show. At 7:15, I heard Mark say, "Hi, I am Mark." And then, a voice I did not recognize, deeper than Mark's, steadier. "Hi, Mark. I am James." I stayed in the living room, but I could hear them, and after 20 minutes, I heard Mark cry. Not the quiet kind, the kind that comes from deep in the chest, from a place most men spend their lives pretending does not exist. I stood in the kitchen doorway. On the screen, James was crying too. Same jaw, same eyes, 36 years apart, and they look like 2 versions of the same blueprint. James, does she know? My birth mother? Mark wiped his face. She knows. It did not go well. I do not want to cause problems. I just wanted to know where I came from. Mark, you are not causing problems, James. You are not the one who lied. Lily tugged my hand. Mommy, why is Daddy sad? I picked her up. He is not sad, baby. He is meeting someone new. 2 weeks later, Patricia came to our door, unannounced. The old pattern. Same side entrance. Same assumption that her presence was always welcome. Except now the side door was locked. I had changed the code. She knocked. I opened the front door. She stood on the step in a grey cardigan, eyes rimmed red, looking 10 years older than the woman who had slit an envelope across a table with the confidence of someone who believed she was saving her family. I need to explain, she said. I was young. My parents made me give him up. I carried this guilt for decades. Mark appeared behind me. Then you should have dealt with it honestly. Instead, you projected it onto my wife and my daughter. I was trying to protect. You were not protecting anyone, Mom. You were protecting your secret. Patricia looked at me. Danielle, please. I am asking for a chance. I considered her for a long moment. This woman who had spent 7 years measuring me, cataloguing my flaws, salting the ground between me and her family. This woman who had stolen my daughter's DNA. This woman who had planned a public execution at her own dinner table and called it love. Patricia, you are welcome to have a relationship with Lily. She loves you. We would not take that from her. Hope flickered in her eyes. But it will be on our terms, on our schedule, and you will never be alone with her again. The hope dimmed, but it did not die. She nodded. Those are the terms, I said. She did not argue. For the first time in 7 years, maybe for the first time in her life, Patricia Atwood did not argue. She stepped off the porch, walked to her car, and drove away. Warren called Mark on a Tuesday, 3 weeks after the dinner. Been at Dennis's since that night, he said. First time in my life, I have slept under another man's roof. You okay, Dad? I have been seeing a counselor. Do not laugh. I am not laughing. My guy, Dr. Pham, he says I need to figure out what I can live with and what I cannot. Warren paused. The line was quiet, except for the sound of wind. He was probably outside, standing in Dennis's yard. I can live with a mistake she made at 25. People make mistakes. Lord knows I have. But I cannot live with 36 years of silence. That is not a mistake. That is a decision, made every single day. Mark did not respond. Sometimes silence is the kindest thing a son can offer. The following Saturday, Warren drove to our house. He brought a toy truck he had made in Dennis's garage, hand-sanded, painted red, with wooden wheels that actually turned. For my granddaughter, he sat at the door. Lily saw him from the hallway. She ran. Papa Warren. He scooped her up, and she pressed her face into his flannel collar, her red curls against his plaid shirt. He held her for a long time. Then he looked at Mark. She looks like your mother did at this age, you know. Before your mother started dyeing it. Mark nodded. I know. Warren set Lily down. She rolled the truck across the porch, making engine sounds. He watched her with the expression of a man who had just rewired his entire understanding of the past, tracing every connection back to its source, finding shorts and dead ends, and deciding which circuits were still worth keeping. 6 months later, Mark flew to Portland and met James in person. They sat in a diner for 4 hours. 2 men with the same jaw, the same slightly crooked nose, 36 years of distance between them. James brought his wife, Amy, and their daughter, Sophie. Mark brought photos of Lily. In August, James and his family visited Connecticut. Sophie and Lily played in our backyard while Mark and James sat on the porch, drinking iced tea and watching their daughters chase each other through the sprinkler. I stood in the kitchen window and watched them, 2 brothers, finding each other in the middle of their lives. Patricia and Warren went to couples therapy. Warren moved back home after 2 months, but he set conditions. Honesty, full disclosure, no more locked drawers, no more buried histories. Patricia agreed. She stopped dyeing her hair. It came in silver gray now, with traces of red at the temples, the ghost of the girl she had tried to erase. Courtney apologized formally. In writing, she mailed a letter, handwritten, 3 pages, to both me and Mark. It was the most honest thing she had ever produced. The relationship was rebuilding, slowly, the way you rebuild anything worth keeping. One honest conversation at a time. Aunt Margot was not invited to Thanksgiving. Nobody discussed it. The absence spoke clearly enough. At work, I helped a 5-year-old girl take her first steps in new leg braces. She grabbed my hands, pushed off, and stood for 3 seconds before sitting back down. Her mother sobbed. I wrote in my notes, patient stood unsupported for 3 seconds, progress within expected range. Some things take time, but they come. The manila envelope sits in a drawer in my desk. I never threw it away. Not because I need it, but because it reminds me that sometimes the weapon someone builds to destroy you is the same weapon that sets you free. Here is what I know now. The people who try hardest to expose your secrets are usually the ones with the biggest secrets of their own. And the truth, the real truth, does not need a stage, or an audience, or a manila envelope slid across a dinner table. It just needs time. That is my story. A DNA test, a dinner table, and a secret that was 36 years old. If this reminded you to trust yourself when everyone else doubts you, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for being here. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.